Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, just going to give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with the kitchen and all that. I mentioned in my last vlog that I've made the decision to get back into replacing the cabinets in the kitchen, and a few things have happened since then, and I'm going to kind of go through it with you, let you know where we are. Now, as we've covered before, we're going to remove all of these cabinets in here because, like I said, I hate them. They're ugly, they look dirty. I know it's supposed to look like they made them weathered and old, but like I said, I just think it makes it look dirty. And we're also going to remove the bulkhead. Now, that was the part that was giving Home Depot a little bit of pause, because they said they don't do that. You're going to have to negotiate that with the contractor. But they had some like contractors that they've got experience with working with. And one of them just visited me about 10 minutes ago, left it just a few minutes ago. And he was looking at this and says, yeah, I don't think that's going to be a huge problem to pull the bulkhead out. They're going to try and retain the crown molding on the top too, because, you know, if we're gonna put the crown molding back in, and I don't know if we're going to. It's possible the cabinets are going to go all the way up to the ceiling, and so we may not do the crown molding, which means it'll probably just have the crown molding end right at the wall here, or right at the edge of the cabinet, and then, you know, maybe resume over here, go all the way around, and then terminate here when it hits this part of the cabinet, and then this will all be pulled out, and the old cabinets will be pulled out. And one of the other requirements I had is I really want them to save the countertops. That was another thing that Home Depot wasn't sure that their contractor would be able to do, and they said that's something you'll have to negotiate with them. And this guy said, yeah, there'll be no problem. He was a little concerned that it was one big long piece, but it actually turns out, and I knew this, there's actually a seam right here where if necessary they can split it at that point, and then it would be two pieces and easier to pull out. And he says, we'll just, if we end up breaking the seam right there, then what will happen is they'll just get the same kind of grouting and reconnect that up. So I did go out and pick the cabinets I want. They designed the whole thing for me. I did what I did last time when I worked with Lowe's, which is let's see, let me get my drawing out here. Before I went in the first time, I kind of, you know, gave them just kind of rough dimensions of what everything was, and based on that they came up with a kind of a plan of what this thing's going to look like. And you look at it, it looks pretty nice, right? I think it's going to look real nice, and it's going to really brighten things up. It's going to be a nice white color, not this kind of off-white color, and so I think it'll really pop. It'll match up with the ceiling and the real bright colors here. The guy said if necessary, and they end up having to pull the cabinets out and end up damaging the drywall behind it, that they will repair that as part of the process. So basically what they're going to do is they'll come in here, they'll pull the cabinet, or the counter, the cooktop, the counter here, the microwave and the range out, and they'll do that, get that all out of the way. Then they'll tear everything down. One of the things he was questioning was if there's actually ventilation. There's actually a vent hood on this thing, but I've never really used it a whole bunch because it seems to just blow everything that gets sucked up from underneath seems to just blow out here. So, and it doesn't appear that there's any kind of plumbing going up from the microwave up into the ceiling, and so it vents outside. And that's one of the things that he thinks he's going to look at when the microwave comes down, to see if there's a way to get in there and do that. And he says that if it is, that he'll get up there in the attic and go up to the ceiling and put a vent hood up there, so we're actually venting out of the house. That's always been something I always thought was a little counterproductive, is we aren't really sucking any fumes or you know, smoke or whatever you get from the cooktop out of the house. It just pumps it out of the top of the microwave. So that maybe will be a little bit of an improvement. One of the things he's going to have to deal with is the fact that the microwave is actually plugged in there, so he's going to have to move that outlet, and he doesn't know if he's going to do it at this point, if he's going to move it onto the back wall or up or whatever. So he'll figure that out, what's going to go when he gets to that point. And there's also the issue with the dishwasher down here, and that is when they installed the dishwasher, there isn't a proper outlet on the wall in there. They just somehow routed the power down the wall, and they just got a wire coming out of the back of the wall that plugs the hard wires into the dishwasher. Well, I pulled the dishwasher out a couple times and done some repairs on it. I had one point where I had to replace the heating element because it was leaking, and there was another time where I got some glass in the motor that pumps, or in the pump that pumps out the water between cycles, and it wasn't pumping out. And so I've had the dishwasher out a couple times, and the first time I pulled it out, I actually cut that wire and then put a plug on each end so I can connect and disconnect the dishwasher easily. That's not really the best way to doing it. Some might say that's not how it's done, but when they go in there this time, they're going to put an actual proper outlet in there and get that thing wired up correctly. So at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a far better option, and I'm really looking forward to getting this done. It's going to be maybe a few months. And that was one of the issues that I talked to Home Depot about. I told them about my experiences with Lowe's, and they say, yeah, well, sometimes you get little delays on that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what, I understand delays. That's how the world works. And sometimes things happen that you can't prepare for and predict. But, I want to be able to get honest answers from you. And I think the biggest problem I had with Lowe's is they were unable or unwilling to communicate with their vendor. I remember I told you at the time that, when I was really starting to get angry with Home Depot or with Lowe's because of how they were screwing things up, that I ended up, going in there and talking to them, and they couldn't even connect up with their vendor. And that was a big problem with me, because they couldn't even give me an estimate when things were going to happen. And that was something I said to Home Depot. I have no problem with, there being delays. I understand it happens. But I need you to communicate with me what's happening, and I need to make sure that you're communicating with your vendor and making sure that they're keeping to their deadlines. Because, like I said, Lowe's wasn't even talking to their vendor, and I couldn't get. They said they'd try and call them, and they'd sit on hold for 45 minutes before they could talk to them, and then when they did finally connect up with them, they couldn't get them to tell them anything. So, hopefully this is going to work a little smoother. I told him, I understand delays happen, but I need you to communicate with me what's happening so I know what's happening. And so I think that's going to work out really well. We're going to connect up with Home Depot again. I think I got one more vendor going to come in here that'll do the install, because I got a call from I got two calls, one from the guy that came in today, and another call that came last night, and I didn't take that one. I just sent it to voicemail. But I think we're going to try and bring them in and see what they think. I know the guy that came today has good reviews with Home Depot, a lot of 5-star reviews, and that's important. But I was talking to the guy at Home Depot about that, and he says, yeah, well, don't judge entirely on the reviews. Generally, good reviews can be trusted. But, if you get somebody that has a bad review or two, don't worry about that. Sometimes people get really, kind of snotty when they give reviews. Something didn't work out exactly the way they thought it should, and they retaliate to the installer by giving them a bad review. So, hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we won't have any issues, but I'm going to bring another guy in here and get another price estimate. I got a basic understanding of what this is going to cost, and basically I knew what I kind of figured it was going to be going out the door, and I had kind of a number in my head, and the number they gave me is pretty close. So stay tuned. We're going to move forward with this in the next couple months, and you're coming along for the ride. We've had a little bit of rain around here in the past few weeks. Actually, a lot of rain in the last few weeks. So this is Flash's really first time getting to get out a little bit, and so she's it's not really that clear and sunny yet. It's still a bit overcast, but I think the rain is pretty much past us. But I'll tell you what has loved the rain is the garden. Look at those hydrangeas. still really muddy out here, but the hydrangeas, they love the rain. And so they're blooming like crazy right now. And all the plants that we planted in here a few months ago are doing very, very well. So I'm very happy with that. We'll keep track of that and see what's going on here. Now I get a few squirrels in the yard from time to time, and I like to encourage the squirrels and the birds, so I put food out for all of them. And some of the stuff I have right now is like includes different nuts and corn and stuff like that. And it looks like I got an actual corn stalk growing in the yard right now. I think that's a piece of corn that either took root or got buried by the squirrels and took root. So I don't know, I got a little corn growing in my backyard right now. That's interesting. I'm going to let that go and see what happens. And then we get back here to the garden, and I don't know, a few of the strawberry plants are doing okay, but they aren't growing really well at this point. This may be one of those things that doesn't work very well. Every year when I garden and try something, I'm trying something new to see what happens. And I don't know, maybe the problem with these is they're just not doing well because there hasn't been that much sun. And they may do better as we get more sun, as we move into summer here. But they're not doing that well. And if they don't do well, we'll try something again next year. The tomatoes, on the other hand, are going to town. Look at that. You remember I built this framework so that the tomatoes can crawl up here and then lay on top of this thing and not be laying on the ground like I've had them do in the past. You remember those plants were, 5 or 6 inches tall. They're, I got a few of them right now that are almost, that one there is almost up to the framework, and I got a handful of them that aren't far behind. So hopefully we are going to get a massive crop of tomatoes this year. That would be great. I love tomatoes, and I've done very well with tomatoes here, so I'm happy to see that they are doing well. The swimming pool, of course, is still a disaster. I decided to pull the liner off of it and get it laid down in there. And unfortunately, the water is, we've had so much rain lately that the water is still pooling in the bottom of it. I want to actually pull the liner out of the pool altogether, but I got to get the water out of there first. And so I'm going to have to let that evaporate a little bit. But you can see how bad the problem was with the rust here and why it's such an issue here. It looks horrible on the outside, but it's an absolute disaster inside. Look at that. That's all rotted away right there. So we're still kind of on hold on whether we're going to remove or replace the pool, but yeah, this was something that was going to fall apart anyway. So it's a good thing I did what I did and got it drained, because if I didn't do this, at some point the pool was going to rot away, and I was going to have 30,000 gallons of water flood my backyard. So it was a good thing I drained it and kept the pressure off of this. And I'm sure it's probably degraded a little bit now ever since I pulled the liner off too, but that's the way it goes. And the biggest issue I've been kind of fighting with on this is keeping the mosquitoes out of there, because the mosquitoes love the standing water. And there for a while, it was a big infestation in there. What I actually did is poisoned the water in there by using the shock chemical that I usually use to clean the pool, and that killed all the mosquito larvae. And if you actually look, I put a chlorine tablet in the middle there to keep the water chlorinated enough, and so far it looks like it's doing a really good job keeping the mosquito population under control. I don't see any larva activity in there at all. So this is still on hold. For those who've been watching the live stream, I've decided at this point I'm not going to make a decision immediately on whether we keep the pool or not. I'm going to go into the summer and I want to see what I think about not having the pool during the summer. And maybe in the middle of summer I'll decide, I do really want to have the pool back, and at that point then we'll make a decision to reinstall. But as I said before, the other option is that we may just end up removing it altogether and put some trees back here. I'd love to have some fruit trees back here, and that would be a good thing. So that's where we're standing on that. Like I said, there's not a specific subject for this vlog today. This is just kind of an update on everything that's going on here. And I think we're coming to the end of this vlog. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.